Last week, I shared a modern midrash, a story that I wrote taking off of the Parsha, based on the story of Balaam, an itinerant prophet who was sent to curse the people Israel by Balak, the king of the Moabites. And as he goes on his donkey, an angel from God comes down to stop him from telling this curse. So everyone really enjoyed the story last week, and I thought some of you may not have heard it, so I'm going to share the story with you this week, along with some paintings that have been made throughout history of the angel and of Balaam and his donkey. Enjoy. I am not a formidable angel like my counterparts. The angel of truth carries a fiery sword, and the angel of justice holds a scale that intimidates even the most brazen sinners. There are angels that bring plagues and pestilence, or have the power to destroy entire cities with balls of fire. Even the messenger angels are mostly tall and broad-shouldered, so as to be more noticeable and respected in delivering their divine dispatches. But me, I'm the angel of mercy. I am not burly or intimidated. I do not carry a sword or scale or bring disease. I appear when the hour has come to release untruths and mistakes, to let go of sorrows and leave grudges behind. I enter quietly and provide a gentle embrace, then slide out as subtly as I arrived. I was made for this work. In angel school, I was always the quiet one, not tall but not unusually short, not beautiful but not ugly either. Average and unobtrusive, I often played alone, finding some heavenly animal to stroke softly in a corner. I always liked animals and generally preferred them to people or angels. The day I was called to intercept Balaam's journey, I couldn't understand why I'd been chosen for the task. Most days I was called to oversee a repair of small fractures, making amends over fairly insignificant arguments. But that day, when I went in for my daily assignment, the archangel looked at me and said, "Ah yes, Tzadkiel, good, you're here. I need you to stop an itinerant prophet named Balaam from delivering a false prophecy to the Moabite king, Balak. God is quite intent on stopping that message, but I'm hoping it won't result in Balaam's death. He's a good guy with great potential as a prophet, and he's just been a bit misguided by all the gold he's being offered." She handed me my missive, and I looked at it, perplexed. What role could I play in stopping a prophet from delivering an erroneous message? I tried to ask the chief angel about it, but she just smiled a mysterious, withholding smile and said, "I just know you'll be right for this one. You'll see," and waved me off. I went into the staging room to see what props, if any, I was meant to take with me down to earth, and was surprised to find in my box a suit of armor and a huge, shining sword. What kind of errand was this anyway? Was I supposed to fight the guy? I turned back to the archangel to protest, but she was immersed in conversation with the next angel in line. I donned the armor and picked up the sword. It all felt cold, heavy, and foreign. I felt awkward as I stepped into the portal to descend to earth. The other armed angels seemed excited or angry, baring their teeth or sharpening their blades. Usually this moment found me in a corner, away from the weapons, cowering behind the angels of love and desire, who were always canoodling obnoxiously. Today, I picked my way over to the corner of the angels of love and desire, and they looked at me strangely and backed away, so I just stood there awkwardly alone. Down on earth, I appeared in a vineyard, bisected by a dirt path that had a wood fence on one side and a stone wall on the other. I stood in the middle of the road trying to figure out what to do with my sword. Should I hold it aloft or down by my side? In the distance, I could see Balaam approaching on his donkey. The donkey was cute, white with a tuft of gray between her fluffy ears. I had a strong urge to pet her then, and I started to coo a little, to click my tongue, beckoning. The donkey spotted me even far away, and she brayed and swerved suddenly, walking into the vineyards and trampling some of the grapes, nearly throwing Balaam to the ground. Oh no, I thought, I forgot how scary I look with my armor and sword. I suddenly felt like an imposter and was seized with anxiety. I'm doing this all wrong, I thought. Now Balaam will see me and will run away before I've had a chance to talk to him. I'm going to fail, and the archangel will regret sending me and never give me a good assignment again." Balaam started to get tangled in the vines and cursed, urging the donkey back onto the path. She wouldn't let go and was shaking. Balaam started to beat the donkey until she returned to the path, and I felt awful for creating the whole mess and causing the donkey to endure a beating. Feeling more awkward than ever, I thought about putting down my sword, but it had been put in my box, so obviously I was supposed to use it somehow, and I didn't want to go against a direct divine order. It sounded like God was already pretty upset. I reassured myself that as soon as Balaam returned to the path, he would see me, and it would all work out as planned. But he didn't see me. When they returned to the path, Balaam looked up, boring his eyes into the distance, as if willing them to get to the destination faster. He was looking straight ahead, exactly where I was standing, and just kept on riding as if I weren't there. The donkey kept her head down and walked. "Come on," I thought. "Let's get this over with." I began to approach them until I was just a few arms lengths away, standing smack in the middle of the path. I felt so awkward my cheeks burned. This was not how I usually approached people. I usually came up behind them quietly and embraced them gently so they felt comfortable and warm. I was non-confrontational by nature, but this was the assignment I was given. I was determined to talk to the archangel about what kind of assignments I should be getting in the future. Within a few paces, the donkey caught sight of me again and pressed herself against the wall, squeezing Balaam's foot. He cursed and kicked her really hard, so she winced and continued to walk. I got frustrated. How was he not seeing me? Sure, I was slight and unassuming, but I was wearing a full set of armor and carrying a sword, for goodness sake. I was always okay with not being seen when my role called for subtle entrances and exits, but I guess I never realized that I actually couldn't be seen. I always figured I was just so stealth and good at my job that they failed to notice me. But now I was standing there plain as day, and Balaam didn't notice. Was I invisible? The donkey clearly saw me. What was going on? I flew upwards and looked down towards the path, finding a spot that was so narrow there was barely enough space between the wall and the fence for the donkey to pass through. I placed myself there, figuring that this time Balaam would have to notice me, for there was nowhere else to turn. I puffed up my chest and stood with my sword aloft, trying to look as formidable as I could. But when they approached, Balaam still didn't see me. The donkey did, though, and this time she lay down in the path, refusing to move. Balaam was so furious that he took a stick out of his belt and began to beat her. Anger boiled in me like a cauldron, and I felt like baring my teeth the way the pestilence angels do. I felt like using this sword I'd been given. Why couldn't Balaam see me? Was he blind? Was he daft? What kind of prophet was he that he couldn't see an angel? And why did he have to beat his poor donkey this way? I wanted to shout or cry and cast my eyes about, seeking solace. My gaze landed on the donkey. And then I realized that I wasn't alone in being invisible. This man didn't really see his donkey either. She was clearly trying to communicate with him, and he ignored her repeatedly in favor of continuing undisturbed toward his destination. At once I was filled with mercy towards this man. I realized that the lesson he needed to learn would not come through intimidation by me, but by learning to see those around him. I felt magic building in my fingertips, and I whispered a few words to open the donkey's mouth. It worked, and she spoke. She looked at me gratefully and then turned toward her master. "What have I done to you that you've beaten me these 3 times?" she asked. Balaam looked about, and seeing no one, looked down at her, taking a moment to register that the voice he'd just heard was from his donkey. He was momentarily lost for words, but then blinked and decided to go along with it. "You have made a mockery of me," he shouted. "If I had a sword with me, I'd kill you." This made me resent him again. But the spirit of mercy remained in me, and I felt a bubbling of joy that at least they were communicating, trying to work things out. "Look, I am the ass that you've been riding all day long until this moment," the donkey said. "Have I been in the habit of doing this to you?" Balaam's face twisted in anger for a moment. But then he sighed, sat back in his saddle, and said, "No." At that moment, I felt the air of forgiveness descend around me the way it did when I helped resolve an argument between people. I smiled and suddenly understood why the chief angel had chosen me for this errand. Balaam looked up then and startled so hard that he fell off his donkey onto the ground. He had finally seen me. Quickly, Balaam arranged himself into a bow before me. "Why have you beaten your donkey these 3 times?" I said, deepening my voice and trying to sound imposing. "I have come out as an advocate for you. This kind of errand is obnoxious to me. It's not what I usually do," I added, feeling anger begin to boil again. Balaam sat up then and looked puzzled. His frightened, humble eyes brought me back to myself, Tzadkiel, the angel of mercy. "When the donkey saw me, she shied away because of me those 3 times. If she had not shied away from me, you are the one I should have killed, while sparing her." Balaam's eyes traveled to my sword then and grew wide. He bowed to the ground. "I erred because I did not know you were standing in my way. If you still disapprove, I will turn back," he said. I was flooded with relief then. I had accomplished my mission. I was about to tell him that yes, he should do just that, when the voice of the archangel appeared in my ear. "Let him go," she said. "God has changed the plan." I poked at my ear, trying to make sure I'd heard right. "What?" I said, feeling my heart fall. "Really?" But I managed to get him to turn around, when he was determined not to. "I know, and you did a good job," she said kindly. "Better than good, in fact. You did it just right. You made it so that God could see that Balaam has the capacity for forgiveness and change, and has decided to trust him to go before Balak and deliver the right message, God's message, instead of being directed by greed." "Wow, really?" I said again, still kind of annoyed, but also kind of in awe of what I had done. I had spared this man's life and had changed his future. I had saved him without even realizing I was doing it. "All right," I said, feeling proud now. "I'll tell him." "And Tzadkiel," she said, "you're actually going to keep being his angel. He needs someone to continue to translate God's voice to him and make sure he stays in line." "I get to translate the voice of God?" I said. It had been hundreds of years since I'd been chosen to do that. "Yes," said the archangel, "God has decided to add a bit more mercy to the world, for now." I smiled. "Go to the king," I said to Balaam, "but you must say nothing except what I tell you." Balaam got up and remounted the donkey, and we walked off along the path. I puffed my shoulders then, feeling proud of my smallness, of my averageness, my mercy, which had won me the right to be seen, not only by a donkey or a man, but by God.